Starbucks has had 4 different CEOs in under 5 years. The reason? They're struggling. China isn't the growth or cash cow it used to be. Starbucks coffee is expensive and nobody wants to hang around in their stores. And those that do have a tendency to get kicked out for loitering. So they brought in Brian Niccol and paid him, let's say, a lot of money. Over $100 million in the first 6 months. And he could commute by Learjet, so he didn't have to relocate. Niccol has been at Starbucks since 2024 now, and it looks like he's turning Starbucks around, at least to some degree. Why? What makes what he's doing special? I'm Mike. I've got 25 years of experience from pharma tech and consulting. I've held C-level roles in global companies. I have degrees in business, human resources, and psychology. On this channel, I pick apart why companies do the things they do, and I provide advice on navigating the corporate world. This time around, it's about Starbucks and Brian Niccol's turnaround and why he might succeed. Here we go. Starbucks has been around since 1971. They started as a place selling coffee beans, equipment, and tea out of Pike's Place Market in Seattle. It took until the 1980s for Starbucks to slowly move towards the coffee house idea. And in 1987, they had a period of rapid expansions, which began with them finally embracing the idea of actually selling brewed drinks to customers. The 1990s saw them grow to hundreds of stores in the US, and they went public in 1992. 2000s marked the time where Starbucks expanded massively globally. To me, it felt like no matter the capital city, you could always find a Starbucks. In 2008, the global recession hit, and Starbucks too felt probably their first real big period of problems. They had overexpanded and their customers were not as happy with the product on offer. The solution was to close underperforming locations, expand the food menu, and introduce a host of new products. By the early 2020s, Starbucks had over 30,000 stores globally. You could order drinks online, and this is where Starbucks went from being a coffee shop where people hung out for hours into a pickup spot for mobile orders before dashing off to work. COVID wasn't exactly great for Starbucks, but for any business that needed people out of the house, the story was the same. By late 2023, the story of Starbucks was one of problems. Not going out of business problems, but definitely one of challenges on multiple fronts. With inflation on the rise, paying for a $6 or $8 or $10 coffee was something a lot of people were starting to opt out of. They chose instead to make their own coffee or find more affordable options from competitors. Starbucks has been stuck in a place where they're not premium enough in terms of quality to put in the high-end crowd, but not cheap enough to compete with the low, mid-range volume customer. Relatively speaking, fewer people, not nobody, but fewer people were using their stores anymore. The idea of this third place, which was pioneered essentially by Starbucks, a place where people apart from home and work would hang out, people didn't do that anymore. Starbucks had turned into a convenient or inconvenient pickup point for impersonal mobile orders. It just wasn't a place to be in many locations. Employees were also unhappy. They felt both overworked, underpaid, underappreciated for the pressure they had to deal with in the stores with the queues of people waiting for their mobile pickups. China, which is their top market alongside the US, saw a significant slowdown in consumer spending, which really hit their revenues. And the coffee experience was no longer something Starbucks had an edge in. McDonald's will get you a relatively decent coffee for less, and you can find hundreds of local artisanal coffee shops in every major city with more ambience, better coffee, and customers that are willing to pay more. On top of that, Starbucks has a huge menu these days. The coffee selection is huge, but the variety in terms of add-ons and foods and alternatives is just massive, all of which slows down service because of increased complexity, it stresses out staff, and it just doesn't mesh all that well with the take-out mobile order model. And finally, it's not really cool to go to Starbucks anymore. Gen Z customers shy away from big brands like Starbucks. They look more for the local, authentic coffee shop and not the huge chain. It also hasn't helped in some markets that Starbucks' approach to employee management has hurt them with customers as well. So in a nutshell, Starbucks is too big, too complex, not special, and a little bit out of touch with what customers want today. So they brought in Brian Niccol. You are probably new here, as most people are, because this is still a small and growing channel. If you want to help out the channel and you enjoy my content, then please click the subscribe button. It will help out massively. Thanks a ton. Brian Niccol is the man behind Chipotle's turnaround and success. He's what you would call an operator, a person who knows this kind of business, and he was tasked with turning it around. His background has included a long stint at Procter & Gamble, followed by his first CEO role at Taco Bell. From 2018 to 2024, he was at Chipotle and is largely the one credited with the transformation of Chipotle. He solved the food safety crisis they had and massively grew their revenues and their profits. Brian Niccol has a reputation as a turnaround guy, and that is why they brought him in, because turnaround is what they felt they needed. Given the problems, it's not really that surprising what he's done. He's cut down on the menu complexity to get operational costs under control and has made ordering and pickup experience better for the same reason. It achieves the goal of taking off some of the pressure of the baristas, since customization really adds complexity that slows things down. He's also re-emphasized the in-store experience. He's put a lot of effort into re-establishing Starbucks as that third place where people would want to hang out. He's done simple things like reintroducing ceramic mugs to incentivize people to hang around and also make the store feel more premium. An example of small things he's implemented to make the store experience more appealing, more inviting. As with all CEOs, he has cut layers, he's removed bureaucracy, and he's tried to make headquarters more connected to the stores, with less people making PowerPoints and forcing people to fill out Excel sheets for corporate reporting purposes, and instead emphasized business and store experience. Finally, he's also made steps in some markets to improve working conditions, salaries, and benefits to drive up engagement with frontline staff. That's not without its criticisms though, but that's for a different video. When you look at the problem and then look at the solution, it looks deceptively simple. Big complex menu, cut it. Terrible in-store experience, give people ceramic mugs and don't kick them out for loitering. So why couldn't the previous guy just do this when it's all so apparently simple? It comes down to this theory of CEOs that I have and the challenges of big firms. Big firms first. All companies can have strategic missteps, but if there's three things that Starbucks to date has been guilty of, it has been losing sight of what made the company good and what they did. They forgot what their core experience or value proposition was. With size, the ambition of expansion started to apply to everything. More stores is one thing, but like other businesses, venturing into bigger menus, a mobile takeout model, they expanded well beyond their core strengths. That works for some companies, but history is littered with examples of large companies trying to expand on so many fronts, and that gets their complexity to go too high. Costs and the relationship to profits become murky at best, and the product as a whole tends to suffer. Also, they optimized for cost and profit, which led to a decline in perceived quality and experience for the customer. There are other companies that have similar problems. Cracker Barrel, TGI Fridays, Best Buy, Heinz. Chasing too much growth and too much profit is just fraught with risk. And then you've got the CEO piece. And I've got this model I've been working on about the types of CEOs that you have. And I believe there are essentially four kinds. There's the caretaker CEO. This is the CEO you put in place when everything is fine. You're the dominant player in a market, or you just have a safe niche. The market isn't under huge transformation, and you just need to keep on keeping on. You just need to do what you're doing and you'll be fine. In a stock market listed world, these CEOs are rare, but they do exist. Then there's the cost CEO. They are not my favorite CEO, to be honest, because these guys can really ruin a company if they're left in place for too long. When bad, these are the CEOs behind cost-cutting, financial engineering that lead to situations like Boeing and Intel. But they do have their place. Sometimes a company has gotten a bit too complex and a cleanup is needed. A loss of focus on good business management is needed, and those CEOs with the CFO focus reinstate accountability. But they are best when they get in, they fix, and they get out. You don't want them around for 5 or 10 years. Third and fourth are the marketing and consultant CEO, and then the product CEO. The marketing CEO is the person behind the expansion. It's the person that leads a company into new markets, new product categories, and new approaches, but from a commercial perspective. It's also the CEO that is put in place to change the mindset of the company when the value propositions shift. The new CEO of Novo Nordisk is a mix of this CEO and the cost CEO. I say this because with the advent of weight loss drugs, Novo Nordisk is no longer just playing in the pharmaceuticals field, which is inherently slow moving. They're moving in an almost consumer retail space where things need to be much more aggressive. Some conservative, product-focused PhD biochemist is not going to be the one to transition a company to that kind of market. That needs a different kind of speed and prioritization. That's why you get the marketing or consultant CEO. Now, the product CEO, in a word, Steve Jobs, the product visionary. He's not the only one, but this is the person that above all else cares about the core product. Whether that's the car being built, the operating system running the PC, the physical phone, or the coffee and the coffee shop. Those are the sort of archetypes, but any CEO is a mix of those four characteristics. The reason Brian Niccol might be right for the job is because at his core, he's maybe 60% product, 20% marketing, and 20% cost. It's some percentage like that. But the point is, he's product first. He's got a good understanding of marketing. He isn't blind to cost, but it's not the core of his focus. The fact is, at the CEO level, everything is a compromise and is a set of choices with benefits and consequences. There's positive, there's negative. There's no perfect solution. But there are solutions that at a specific time and place are better or worse. Starbucks could have brought in a cost CEO instead of Niccol. That person would have identified the challenges with span of control, operational complexity, product profitability, but would not have addressed it with the customer at the center. The marketing and consultant CEO might see that the products need to be better and might try to innovate and advertise their way out of the current predicament, and they would focus on the cyclical challenges like the downturn in the Chinese market. But the predominantly product guy, they will look at the product and ask the question, why are customers not buying this specific product?
You got to find out what makes your brand magnetic or loved. And when you find out what that is, you got to do everything you can to make sure people understand it and that you're delivering it every single time.
They'll understand what need the product was addressing and will seek to remedy that. And that's not just the coffee, it's also the coffee shop. There are tons of smart CEOs out there, but matching the CEO to the specific problem is harder than you think. That mix of market understanding, product insight, customer feel is not one that all CEOs have, and is not always the most important thing. The analysis is not the hard part, but getting a board to accept the analysis and then finding the person that has the right mix of traits and priorities to make the right operational decisions is harder than you think. Getting the wrong CEO at the wrong time is in part what ruins companies. Paul Otellini and Bob Swan, among others, at Intel completely destroyed Intel's advantage in chips by focusing on costs and financial engineering at a time when they shouldn't have. Lars Fruergaard wasn't exactly a terrible CEO, but when Novo Nordisk needed transformational capabilities, he wasn't capable of delivering because he wasn't a transformational style leader. He was, to be honest, overly focused on the product, not on the market. A lot of people were worried that Tim Cook would be a lesser choice over Steve Jobs. He has not been a product CEO the way Steve Jobs has, but operationally and market-wise, he has been far superior, which at the time has been the clearest, best choice. Bob Chapek, a literal cost-cutting disaster for Disney. Not all Disney problems are his fault, but he was definitely never a fit. But right now, Brian Niccol has most of the qualities and priorities that are needed for Starbucks right now. He won't get everything right, but the core strategy of back to Starbucks is the right one, and he understands what Starbucks needs right now. So he is probably the right guy. Share your thoughts in the comments. Remember to subscribe. See you soon.